So you can see by the diagram where it shows the side view, the feet are pointed. You can see it even better with this diagram down here where the feet are pointed, and looking at it from the top view you can definitely see it. So the point is on not a 45 degree, maybe a 60 degree angle there. So what we got to try and visualize, we don't have the rear view, so we got to try and visualize the rear of it. So from the point is out towards the front of the toe, and the heel is back. So if you turn it upside down, you get a better idea as to how it should run. My pen just came apart. There. So what I like to do is put a line on it like that to try and keep me in tune with how the angle should be. So that's on the finished one. On the rough one, you can see there. Whoops, turned up the other way so you can see it's exactly the same way. So you can see where I'm going here. The angle is pointing out on all of them, like yay. So the heel would be back here, and it's going to be eventually quite small. These are going to be small back here, and then we're going to have something of a point coming out here of his hoof. So the toe and the heel are identified. In the diagram, you cannot see it very well because they don't show a rear view. So in this back here, we've got to create the udder. So the udder is going to start up at the top there, and down here at the bottom is going to have to finish. So all of this material on the side here was here to accommodate the hip and the heel of the foot. So we've got to get this udder to come in quite a bit narrower. So if I look at them side by side, you can see what I mean. All this material out here has to come away in order to accommodate the twist of that foot, because the heel is back in here. So the udder has to come down in between here. Right? That makes sense? So let me draw that in a little bit more. Now don't forget we've got teats that are going to be in here, so we want to make sure we keep them, and that'll likely end up being parts of these sticking out here.
So is the udder to the inside of those then? Is that what you're saying?
So this is gonna be the udder right here. Like this is gonna be our udder, and eventually we got to get rid of this material on both sides. Okay. So I'll start setting that up, and then have to turn this on again. So to give you an idea here, I just removed the wood all the way in to the side of the back leg. So all this hunk of wood came out of here all the way in. So I moved it straight in so that I can round that at some future time, but I don't have to do it yet. Okay? So there it is, with this block removed on this side and this block removed on this side, and I haven't touched any of these points sticking out here yet. We'll leave it at that, and then we'll work on the bottom half in this section down here. In a minute or two, we'll separate the teats.
So are you going flush with the back of the leg here? Is that?
Yes, go
what
right
I'm
into
seeing
the,
there?
right into the. Okay, so we've got both sides set up. So now, if you look at the profile, you'll see that the udder has already started the shape coming down. See how the shape is coming down? So we've got to remove the wood out of the middle in here in order to make those teats hang out. So what I recommend that you do is only take that middle ½ inch out to round that sack around. Because if you don't, then you've still got, these are the teats out here, so they've got to be able to join on. And if you remove too much wood too wide in the middle, then there'll be no place for that to join on. You see, they've got to come in like yay. So just remove that middle ½ inch and bring it around. I'll go ahead and do that again. My favorite tool is the V tool. So it looks like that now. So from the top part here, I've rounded it right around until it joined into the udder on the bottom side. So that shape is already established. You had this in the rough out, that shape there, and you had this shape down here. So now you're doing is basically joining the two together with a trough or a hole that goes right straight through the center. And that still leaves us lots of lump on both sides in order to create those two teats. Okay? Okay, here we go. What we've got is this sack, the top of the udder here is coming around. Got to put a center line in. When you put the center line in, then we can change it from a 2-dimensional diagram to a 3. So move this around so that you start rounding this. It will work on the teat later, but round this over on both sides to start with. I'll do that and then give you an example.
Oh, sorry.
So there it is, just all rounded. Just this top half is just rounded over both sides. And that's going to allow us now to create the angle for these teats to come in. And then once we get the inside angle, then we can remove the wood on the outside and create the lumps on both sides. We'll leave a fair bit of material there so that we can shape them later on. But get this rounded first, and then I'll set you up on the teats. Okay, so now we got to establish the teat. Down in this area down here is what we're talking about. All this where it joins onto the udder. So if you take a look at the finished one here, you can see that it comes out on an angle. So what we're going to do is we're going to do exactly that. We're going to knock off these lumps here. We're going to get a straight line into the udder and establish the one side of it, and then we'll establish the other side of it coming across like that. Does that make a little bit of sense to you? So we're just going to leave a big lump there. We're not going to give it any detail yet. Okay? Okay, so following up on that, once you've got this angle going in on both sides, then it's not too difficult then to visualize how much you've got to leave for the udder, so that this material on both sides here has to be removed. So you leave the udder, and you remove the material on both sides. Alright, so we'll do that, and it goes right into where the side of the leg is. So there it is, set up. So you can see I removed the wood not behind, but up to the udder and right up to the side of the leg, and that goes, then you can start to visualize it. We haven't removed any of the wood underneath yet, and there it is on the other side. So give you a better handle as to how it looks. So you can see the udder, or the teat, has started to take shape. But after we get that done, then we got to remove this hunk of wood under here up to the side of the leg. So this piece here comes out up to the udder, and that's of course on both sides. So there's lots of material removed, but there's still lots of material there because we got to shape this teat on both sides in conjunction with the leg. So eventually we'll be able to hollow out underneath the leg here so that it looks something like that. So leave a lot of material there, and don't try and give it any detail yet. Now just remember that now that you've got that sitting out there by itself, don't use that as your grip hold, because the grain is running up and down, and guess what will happen? You'll smash that off pretty fast.
Shouldn't have said that.
You already did it?
No.
So just be aware that those things are, I mean, there's not very many features on this design that will cause it to rough out, or break off rather, but that will. Let's get started again. Okay, so let's make sure that you leave all this udder and the teats big, and leave them all just roughed out. I mean, there's nothing set about them. Now we've got to set the leg in. And if you take a look at the top part of the leg up here, up at the hip, you see where it comes down. Well, it starts about there, and down at the bottom here we have to leave the material for the hoof to come back out. So we have to create that shape, but there's no reason why we can't take all that material out the side here. Now when saying that, you got to turn that around and look at the other side and make sure that you leave this teat here sticking out, or it'll be gone. So you're only talking about removing the material in this section here, not back here. Okay? So we're going to knock that leg way back in. And it's a good, pretty close to a 1/4 inch, if not 3/8, all the way back in. And again, leave the tail. We can always cut back the tail later on. So that's done, as you can see, on both sides. Comes down and then turns out for the hoof. All this material here. On this side here, the same thing applies. Make sure you leave the teat sticking there. Okay? Alright, so what we've done is, now we've removed the wood on both sides, so you can see how much we've come in there. It's come in a long ways because all this material has been removed here, and likewise on the other side. So try and get them relatively equal. Don't have to be exactly, but get them close. So eventually we can start to curve the udder in a little bit and shape the feet and the legs so that they work around. So then we got to worry about the hips and how the udder and the teats work in on the sides. So I'm going to switch sides here on you and get away from that tail side, and we're going to work on the other side and try and get this udder started to shape, and maybe a little bit of the hip started to shape as well. So we got to get this rounded so that we get the leg established there and the udder established there. So in order to do that, we've got to round up, narrow down his back leg here quite a bit, get that hip established. And you've noticed how this hip comes up, it digs in and then it comes up, comes out, and it's shallow, shallow, shallow to nothing until it goes up and over the back. So it's just a question of playing with this area in here to try and get that all established. So we're going to work on that guy over here and see if we can't do that. So the first thing we want to do is, if you take a look at this, we want to get that hip established there. So that hip has to come up and kind of curl around, something like that. So you get rid of this material in here, and at the same time you can start to give this round effect coming down to shape the top part of that udder. Again, I'm not playing around with this teat down here at all. We want to save as much of that material as we can. Oh. All right. So can you see what I've done here is I've created this hip coming down here. So I removed all this extra wood that was in here, and then I made this little V in here, so now I'm continuing on with the body going down and around on the top part of that teat, or the udder rather. So there it is sitting there with the notch right in. I haven't even touched this sack down here at all yet. So just establish the top part of the hip and how it joins on the udder on the top part of the body, its belly, her belly. Boy, that rain's really coming down, isn't it? Alright, so now there is our udder sitting here. The hip is established. It comes around the belly. And so now we can start to shape this udder in the teat. So the teat's got to stay out. So now we got to get that shape going in, and then we can start rounding the udder. So I'll start doing that. And I'll use a fairly big tool to start with, and work my way in. So turn it upside down and start to work that in and get that shape established. I'm just going straight in and just getting an outside shape. The outside shape actually is the teat itself. Start to get that shape coming. So there, I'm going to start creating a little bit of a hump in there so that I get the possibility of that teat sticking out. So draw on once you get that shape going in, draw on the teat, and then you can remove the wood on both sides and start to round that around. Remember, you still got a leg in there, so you got to leave the leg sitting in there, but there's no, you remove all the wood and get that rounded shape coming on that side.
Brian, just move your camera, or your, good.
Sorry. So that's what I'm referring to, is getting that rounded there and establishing the teeth. Look at how the size of it, it's huge. It doesn't have to be that big little part in afterwards. Leave lots of wood, you can always take some off. Okay, so there you can see I've established the top side of the teat and started to establish the udder. So it starts to go around, give it that round shape in there, and maintain the leg with a slight V-tool, and then cut down in underneath there. So that teeth then sticks out there pretty good. So now you can start to visualize how that udder comes around and eventually will come out the backside here. The leg is really squeezing it in. It's going to be squeezed in tight. I guess once you get that part done, then we can leave it until next week.